And every week, and sometimes more than once a week, I try to bring you interesting people in the field of writing. And our live today is no exception. I'm sure you're going to be amazed by my guest. She's an author, a speaker, and publisher. Her writing career began as a therapeutic journey after her infant daughter passed away at only 2 days old. Her debut book, Sunshine After the Storm, a survival guide for the grieving mother, launched an unexpected career in publishing and author coaching. And I want you to meet my guest. She's coming all the way from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm going to bring her on the screen. Meet Amanda Bigwarfe. Amanda, come on down. Alexa, I've been calling you Amanda all week.
That's quite great.
I even had to change it in my posts. So you're Amanda to me, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Thank you so much. Normally I give the disclaimer, if you have an Alexa, turn it off because it will start to go wild.
There's a logic for me calling you Amanda.
That's right.
I do have an Alexa here. I'll just be careful not to put the hey with it.
Yeah, exactly. So she doesn't start talking.
That is correct. Oh my goodness. Well, Alexa, it's so good to have you here. And we have a following of people all over who love to know about writing. And when I saw some of your material pop up on my Facebook feed, I was like, oh my goodness, this lady is doing some amazing things and she's going to be getting really busy in March. So I would like to get her on the show early enough that anyone who's interested can take part in what you're doing and know all about it. But as I mentioned in my introduction, I wanted to begin with your story and the reason why you got involved with writing and coaching. And I wonder if you could just tell us a little more about that.
Yes, I'll try to give you the short version because it's quite a story. But the very, very important details are that I actually have a background in counterterrorism and homeland security, and that was my career. I was an intel officer in the Air Force, and writing was something I dreamed about. I loved to read as a child, and I dreamed about being a writer, but by this point in time, it was no longer really on my agenda. And I left my job to be home with my 2 children. And about a month after I quit my job, I found out that I was pregnant with identical twins. And it was a high-risk pregnancy from the very beginning. And they developed what was called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. They were born 10 weeks early, 9.5 weeks early. And one of our girls, Kathryn, actually spelled exactly like you spell your name. She just had entirely too many problems, and she passed away 2 days after they were born. And I took to writing after that because I had a very difficult time expressing all of my emotions. And I think a lot of writers will understand that writing is such a tool for release, whether it's creating fantasy worlds or creating an escape from our realities. I actually started blogging at the time. I was writing about grief and loss and having one baby in the hospital and one baby that was no longer with us. And after I was blogging for a while and saw how much impact my words were having on people, I decided that I wanted to put together a book or a resource for other moms who were going through this, because I didn't find anything that really resonated with me. So I pulled together a lot of other moms and some dads, and we put together Sunshine After the Storm, a survival guide for the grieving mother. But what I found was, as I was going through that process, I rekindled my love of writing and my books and kind of fell in love with the process of publishing and writing and decided to do more of it. So I published a second book. The next one was completely different. It was on parenting, Lose the Cape for moms, basically realities from busy modern moms. And after that point in time, people started asking me. They were noticing, they're like, oh, I want to write a book. How did you do this? And especially other grieving moms started coming to me and saying, I'd really like to write my book. And it just kind of started a business out of it.
Alexa, you're not the first author that I've spoken to that writing came out of a grieving process. And I think it's so therapeutic. And even as writers who aren't particularly focused on that, it still is a therapeutic process to write and get things down on paper and out of the soul, I think is one way to describe it. But it was a sad a sad journey, but I mean, you turned it into something amazing and beautiful. And for so many people who have the opportunity to work with you or be touched by your energy and passion for what you do, I think it's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for being so brave to move forward and to share this story with us and just go.
Well, it was an important thing for me too, because it gave me an outlet where I felt like I was keeping my daughter with me. I felt like she was giving me a vision of something that I could do and still keep her memory alive. And in fact, after I started working with other authors, I actually created Biggie Press. Well, that was the imprint that I created for Sunshine After the Storm, but I started publishing some other authors under that name, and the cat was for Kathryn and Biggie for Bigwarfe, our last name. So she is with us every single day and everything that we do, it's comforting.
Beautiful. And actually, Alexa, seeing I was doing things with your name, I'm going to go even further. Your last name, Bigwarfe. Here in Newfoundland, of course, we're surrounded by seashore and wharves and things like that. So up here, we call that Bigwarfe.
Oh, that's funny.
Bigwarfe.
Well, you know, what's really funny is that my maiden name is haddock, which is a fish. So
we call that haddock.
And we call that haddock. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's so funny sometimes where names come from. It really is. But I just had to make that mention because it struck me kind of funny. When you mention your imprint and that's where you publish, do you still continue to do that? Are you self-publishing, or tell us a little bit about that process for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, you know, we evolved. That was 7-8 years ago at this point in time when all of that kicked off. And I did start bringing some authors under ours. And I kept having children's book authors come to me too. And I didn't feel like the children's books really fit under the umbrella of what became mostly women's empowerment type books, grief, loss, self-help, some entrepreneur business books, types of things like that. So I wound up creating another imprint, Purple Butterfly Press, for our children's books. So then I had two, and then those are both hybrid presses, which if the audience isn't familiar with hybrid, it's a partnership program where there are services for publication, but I act as a publisher. So we manage the book, we pay out royalties, we do. I've worked very hard at learning the publishing industry so that I am acting as true to a publisher as I can. And then I decided that I wanted to put my hat in the ring of traditional publishing. So I started Chrysalis Press, and we have one author with Chrysalis Press. And let me tell you, it's hard work. It's hard work to build a traditional publishing house. So we're just sticking with her until we feel like we've gotten that down pat. But you know, the publishing industry, it's difficult to maneuver. It's difficult to be successful. It requires a lot to put into it. So my main business remains Write, Publish, Sell, which is a boutique self-publishing assist place where people who want to self-publish, want to maintain the ultimate control, but they don't want to learn how to figure out all the things to go along with it. So they come to us and we produce their book for them. We get it published and put in the right places and do the things, which my knowledge as a publisher helps greatly. But yeah, so the full spectrum, basically, where we have our hands kind of in it all.
Very interesting, because I think that hybrid model you mentioned, and that's something that I actually did myself. I would call it that more or less with Frisian Press, and you still maintain control of your material. They are very much, it's very much a publishing experience. You work very much with them, but you do have your book and they publish it. Yours might be a little more of a coaching process than what Frisian offers. But this coaching process is really key, because I noticed a statistic on your site that I think 81% of people say they want to write a book. And I believe that. I believe it would be, because you never go anywhere that someone says, oh yeah, I want to write a book. Right. But we know that saying it and doing it are two polar opposites. They really are. And most people don't write it. So, you know, as a coach and with your business, what do you have to say about that? And how do you help them along?
You know, it's funny, there's so much mindset that comes along with writing a book, which is why I ultimately wrote Ditch the Fear and Just Write It, because I see this over and over and over, that it's the fears that stop people from moving forward, because they're thinking at the end objective, oh my gosh, this book, and I have to market it and I have to do all these things, or the fear of, what if nobody buys my book? What if everybody hates me? What if I get bad reviews? Like, all of these things, they play a large part in there. So what we try to do is we try to create an environment where we do a lot of coaching. We teach people as much as they need to know, as much as they want to know, and set realistic expectations for them of what it looks like to be a first-time author, what it looks like to build an audience, and set really realistic expectations, because so many people do think, okay, I'm going to publish my first book, whether it's a nonfiction, fiction, children's book, whatever. They just think it's a great book. People are saying good things about it. I'm going to publish, and on launch day, I'm going to sell 1 million copies. And that's typically not the experience, nowhere near that. So, we do spend a lot of time trying to really teach and help people understand the business of being an author, what it means, other income streams, why you need to be doing all these different things to make sure that you have readers, because if you don't have readers, you're not going to have sales. So I think I went a long way around that question, but basically to answer that, to me, it's like anything else: education, awareness, knowledge of what you're doing, and making sure that people know that just because you've come to a professional to publish your book does not mean you're going to sell 1,000 copies, 10,000 copies, hit the New York Times. I mean, there's so many elements that have to come together to make that happen. And
yeah, and I think it's very daunting to people starting out, and that was one of the reasons for this show. I wanted to delve into these things, these roadblocks, or ways that we can educate people on, here's how you go about writing a book. Here are some of the tools you need. It is very much a business. There's no question that it is. And you have some great tips on your website, which I believe is Write, Publish,
Sell.
You say it.
Yeah, Write, Publish, Sell. We have writepublishsell.co and writepublishsell.com. We're trying to move to .com, but our entire blog is still on .co. So
I noticed that there's no M after the M, and I was
yes,
we automatically would.
Well,
but I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it's a funny story behind that, because speaking of business and investing in all of those things, when I went to grab my domain, the .com cost $1,000. And I just, at the beginning, I couldn't afford that. So I was on writepublishsell.co until I got to the point where I was like, okay, my business is far enough along now. I need the .com. I'm going to make that investment.
True enough. And those people who got out there and got their .coms very early, it was a great thing to do. It's still sort of that. I think .com kind of speaks, well, you've been around for a long time. That's the first thing we think. And it's nice to have that. It already sets up a thought. In general, it's just an association that some people make. But on your .co, there are some great tips there, and I encourage people to check that out. And one of them, seeing as I like to share some tips, I noticed that you said when people are writing a book, and we're getting down to writing it, publishing it, and selling it, you can't start too early to develop that email list.
Right.
I have learned through talking to people that your email list is one of the most valuable things you can ever create. Always. And maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, as they say, or at least we say in the South. I don't know, but that's one of the proof is in the pudding. We see this immensely in the difference between our authors who have an existing email list and those who do not when we go into launches. And it's always our goal with a new author to help them build that email list up. But the reality is, a lot of times we have to build it by giving the book away for free. So it could potentially diminish their sales on launch day. But when we have an author who comes in and they already have an existing email list for whatever reason, for their business, for as long as it's related to the topic of the book, if they've been building it, their sales are just so much higher. And we recently launched a book with an author who had an existing list, and she had over 500 pre-orders of the print book, and we could directly tie that to her email list. So, I mean, there is a huge connection between that. And speaking of numbers, like 500 books may not seem like a lot to anyone who hasn't published yet, but I'm sure, those who have been working to publish, that it's sometimes very, very, very difficult to sell in the hundreds of books at one time, especially with no list and no audience.
Exactly. And it's what you said. You think, I'm going to write this book and all these people are going to buy it, but you have to get it out there. There's a lot of noise. There are a lot of things going on, and certainly thinking ahead and having the social media profiles and working on many different levels. And how do you feel about the social media? How important do you find that is?
I think that social media is very important in building your online persona, your brand, and making connections with people. But we just have not seen, in the majority of cases, there's always an exception, but in the majority of cases, we just have not seen that social media results necessarily directly in sales, unless you have a huge audience and you're a huge influencer and people, and and when you say do something, they do it. So in those cases, it's really effective. But when it comes to like the direct action that result in book sales, it's generally from the email list and marketing, ads, advertising.
And well, I saw your ad on Facebook. That's where I saw your ad, and we're going to talk about coming up the Women in Publishing Summit. But that's where I found out about you, was through the ads. It was very interesting, and that's a big pit too. If you don't know how to advertise strategically on social media, it doesn't take long for the money to burn up.
Oh, Facebook will spend your money faster than you can get it out there for them. I mean, they have no problems with that. And yes, I do invest significantly in the woman who runs my ads. And it's one of the best investments that I've made, because she's so good at what she does, and in her segmentation of audiences and identifying the right audiences and putting it out there. And that is one area that we have invested a lot in, but it has proven to be really, really fruitful for us to have ads showing up in front of the right people at the right time.
Interesting. Well, it worked.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You're case in point.
You were in front of me. Now let's jump into the Women in Publishing Summit, because you started this, and this is the third year, and now it is, I don't think it was women until last year maybe, but anyway, I'm not going to tell the story. You are, so take it away, Alexa.
So yeah, I love teaching. I love sharing just like you are doing here. I love sharing what I'm learning and what I'm finding out about. And when I was looking at different business models and how I could do things a few years ago, it's been 6 years now. I saw the summit model was really coming up about 6-7 years ago. And I thought, what a genius way to bring together a whole bunch of different people to speak on a topic and to share their knowledge at a very low, if any, investment. We were free for the first 5 years. This is the first time we've shifted into a paid conference, but we're giving more to our attendees. So anyway, that's a different story. But I decided, 6 years ago, okay, I want to do this too. So I pulled together a bunch of people who were talking on the topics. The first year was wild because I didn't have an identified audience. So it was basically like anybody who wants to write anything, bloggers, writers, authors, nonfiction, fiction, like just all over the place. And it was very untargeted, but it was good. We had 80 speakers. It was a lot of great information. But it gave me a really segmented audience. And then the next year, my dad was very, very ill, and I was one of his primary caregivers. So I had to back way off. But I didn't want to give up. I wanted to continue, doing this. So we did a much, much, much smaller conference. And then I was watching a bunch of other conferences similar to mine after that time frame, and I started to notice there's no women. There's no women and there's no diversity. I'm watching all these interviews and it's white men. And if there was a panel, there might be one woman on the panel, and she was generally white. And I was thinking, wow, I'm working with all these women that are so diverse all the time. Why aren't they showing up here? So as luck would have it, in 2017, I started making that transition after the 2017 one. And I decided in 2018 to brand solely under the Women in Publishing Summit. And then in October 2018, no one remembers better than I do, the Me Too movement kicked off right after we started doing publicity for the Women in Publishing Summit. And I was like, well, I couldn't have asked for better timing on that. But so yeah, so this is the third or fourth year. I can't even remember anymore. I think this is maybe our fourth year as the Women in Publishing Summit. but yeah, it's been phenomenal. The experience is around community, and our tagline is empower, encourage, support. So not only are we teaching each other, but we're bringing forward resources from women across all kinds of different backgrounds who are helping us with everything from mindset, as I mentioned, that's usually huge, to marketing, to all the things about production, editing, writing, to a full day on business stuff, like the business of being an author, the tools you need to grow your business as a writer. And it's just awesome. I love it.
Wow. And Alexa, that's why I wanted to get you on right away, because I wanted for people to have time to find out about this, to look at it, and possibly if they want to attend, then they can. It's coming up from March 1st to the 8th of, well, this is 2021. So right now you have an early bird launch, but we kind of won't go into that, but people can go online. I've put the website up here on the screen, and they can go in. And is there a point where you cut off, or, you know, it's virtual, so what are your guidelines?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, the price will go up the last day of February, and it starts creeping up a little bit that week. But the first 2 days it's all pre-recorded content. So people could easily join us on day 3 and day 4 and not have missed out too much. But obviously it's better if you come in on the beginning. And the question that we've been getting asked a lot is, well, 5 days is a long time. You know, when are the main things happening? What happens if I can't be there live? What if I work a job? So Thursday and Friday, we have 3 or 4 different live events happening throughout the day, and we're going to be doing some sprinting and some, you know, meeting with the office hours with the speakers. And I have a couple of, at least one agent, I'm hoping to line up at least one more who will come in, and for people who are looking to work with an agent, you know, have some of those activities going on. But everything is recorded. The majority of our presentations are pre-recorded, and that way people can come in and they can access on their own schedules, and they'll have access for 6 months to all the content. So we have 3 tracks, and it'll be organized by track. So if you're a children's book writer, you can easily find the things that are for children's book, but everybody gains access to everything, because there's a lot of content that'll be happening in the other tracks that may not be directly relevant if you're a fiction writer or nonfiction writer, but concepts are the same, even if the genre is different a lot of times. So we give access to everybody to everything.
Excellent. And really, I like the fact that you have a deadline at the end of it, because I find if there's not some sort of end to something, people are always saying, oh, well, I'll get that done, I'll get that done, I'll get that done.
That's exactly why we did it. In the past, we gave lifetime access, and when I was reviewing the numbers, like half the people never even watched the majority of the content. So I was like, you know what? It's not doing its job if we're not making you feel the pressure to go in and watch these.
Absolutely. And do you find, because I feel like, you know, with everything that's happened and changed this year, but the virtual platforms are amazing, because you can have people virtually from anywhere taking part and also presenting. You know, you started virtually though, didn't you? Right from the get-go.
Yes. Yes. So we were actually ahead of the power curve. I was laughing the other day with my team. I was like, normally I'm a day late and a dollar short, but what's with the cliches today? I don't know. They're all over the place. But this time I was actually one of the leaders, and you know, we had just wrapped up our conference last year when the world shut down. So it was, again, timing was on my side on that one. But you know, it's been helpful though, because even so, there were still a lot of people who didn't quite understand the nature of an online conference and an online experience. And if nothing else, this last year has trained everybody about online experiences, about using Zoom, about all of these things. So it's definitely making it easier for people. And people are at home and are thinking, well, I may as well, you know, learn some stuff while I'm sitting here.
Exactly. And you're so right about that. So many people have jumped online, and these things are second nature now. And in fact, I've been having a lot of fun producing videos to help people with online presentations and going live, and to get over the fear of actually going out there. So, you know, it's wonderful that it's available. And that's where I thought, well, it's certainly available to people here in Canada as well. So we may as well have you on and let them know.
We have a lot of Canadians in our audience. I think it's fantastic. We really do. And it's good. It's really good to have the diversity of, we have people from all over the world. But the diversity is great because not everything is the same. I mean, in Canada, you guys don't have to buy ISBNs when you're self-publishing. That's awesome. We do.
I didn't know that difference. That's interesting.
There's a lot of small, subtle differences like that, that it's great to have. I know the US and I know a bit about the UK because of some of my connections in the UK. And now I know a lot about Canada because of the authors that I've worked in there. But there's still times where I have a couple writer friends in Canada that I'm always sending them questions like, oh, somebody just asked me about filing a copyright. I have no idea.
It's true. It just seems like the more you get into writing, the more that you figure like, oh, I have to know this, I have to know that. And that's certainly an advantage of working with people who know what they're doing, who know what to bring to your attention. Yeah. And of course, publishers can do that, but so can people like you. Are there many coaches like you in Canada? Or are you in any kind of a network?
That's a good question. You know, I don't know too many hybrid publishers in Canada. Or author, but I'm sure they exist. I'm sure they exist. I've been so head down in my own survival the last year or two that I'm sure they exist. But one of the cool things about our conference, though, is that it does bring in a bunch of other people like that. And we're putting together a directory of everyone because there are so many service providers that make such wonderful connections for all of the attendees and for all of the other speakers, too, because I need support as I'm publishing authors. I need, graphic designers. I need other people who can do marketing. I need all these other things. So it's nice to provide a forum where we can all come together and share our experience and knowledge and resources and connect people. Absolutely. Connect people to people we can trust.
Trust is a very important word there. Mm-hmm. People like to do business with who they know, like, and trust.
That's exactly right.
Huge. Well, thank you so much for taking this on in your career and doing it and offering it. It's just amazing. And I'm so glad that I had a chance to talk with you. I'm just going to put the name of your other book back up on the screen here, Ditch the Fear and Just Write It, in case anyone has fear there of the written word. And very quickly before we wrap, you may want to say a word about that book.
Yeah, well, the important thing to note is that I wrote this with entrepreneurs in mind who were looking to build their business with their book and had all these mindset blocks around it. So it is very heavily geared towards things that, like, if you're already creating content, if you're already doing those things, but the mindset stuff, and it gives like daily exercises and things like that could be applicable, but it is definitely geared towards nonfiction writers and entrepreneurs.
Okay, well, good to know. And thank you so much again, Alexa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And best of luck with the conference coming up. And people can go to your site, which is writepublishandsell.co.
Yep, correct? But head over to womeninpublishingsummit.com first, because there's resources for everybody. And if I can throw one last plug out there, because we do have a large fiction community as well. We have a romance writers webinar coming up this month. So you can find all of those free webinars at womeninpublishingsummit.com/events.
Excellent. And I may take that one in because that's what I write and love.
And we'll have to have you on too.
Do that sometime. Well, you have a great rest of your day down there in South Carolina, which is a little bit more temperate, although it's lovely here right now as well. Thank you so much for being a part of Let's Get Writing. And to everyone out there, check out our shows on Kathryn Taylor TV. All kinds of interviews and authors that you can enjoy. Have a great day, Alexa.